Welcome to the Nate Gratian Show, where we talk all things pie. That is personal finance, investing, and entrepreneurship. I'm Nate Gratian, your host. Thank you for joining me here today. If you want to be a part of the podcast, if you have a question or a topic about one of these things you'd like discussed, you can send me a message on Instagram at Nate Gratian, or jump on my website where you can find more episodes and connect with me on ngration.com. That's NGRATION.com. For today, the date is the 10th of September 2022, and today we have an eToro update, a portfolio update of the past week and what's coming in the week ahead, and kind of what's going on in the markets and what we're looking at and what's been happening and what's going to be moving on forward. So let's dig into today's episode. I want to thank everyone that's connected with me and started investing with me on eToro in the past week, and everyone that's connected with me on there. The link is in the description below if you want to start investing on eToro, and you can connect with me there. Today we're going to start by looking at the events in the past week, and then we're going to jump into our portfolio and take a look, and then we're going to look a little bit into next week and what's happening there. The biggest event and probably the saddest, and not probably, the biggest event and the saddest thing that's happened this past week is the passing of Queen Elizabeth. There really aren't words to say. It's I know I teared up once or twice watching a couple things and watched a bit of her when she was swore in or when she stepped into being queen, some of the video recording there, and for most of us she's really the only queen any of us has known, and so there really aren't words to say, but her family and I know we'll be keeping her family in prayer, and the world has lost someone and a special person. She was kind of a place of stability, and even through the past couple of years with COVID and everything, she's been a very stable constant that people could look to, and she's been very stable. And so that happening this past week is really difficult for a lot of people, and the UK will be in our prayers and thoughts as well, along with really the rest of the world, because she impacted so many people. This week we also had we heard from Jay Powell, and he remained as hawkish as he was in Jackson Hole. The market didn't really respond to that, but he was still hawkish. The market actually went up on the day that he spoke, and so it already kind of knew what he was going to say, and he re-emphasized that they're serious about bringing inflation down, that this is what they're attacking, and so it didn't really impact the market too much as Jackson Hole did in Wyoming a couple of weeks ago now. And so the market's expecting a 75 basis point rate hike later this month, and that's what it's expecting. It's expecting that because of the way Jay Powell is speaking about the importance of bringing inflation down, and so it's priced that in, and that's why it didn't have much of an impact what he said. About 86% of people are expecting a 75 basis point rate hike. The other events that took place was Apple had their September event, and there was the Code event as well, both kind of tech-focused events, but Apple released their new iPhones and accessories, and in the Code event we heard from people like Apple's CEO and Microsoft and Alphabet. We heard from Mark Cuban, who talked about crypto and some other things, and so we heard from quite a few companies there. Ultimately, both of these companies, Apple was able to release their phones at the same price and are expecting similar margins of 43%. ultimately things are looking good, even though there may be some rough seas in the near term at the moment. But things are looking good, and there may be a bit of a rough patch as we go through the remainder of September and a bit into October. But ultimately, things are looking good for a lot of these companies moving ahead, especially in the long term, and that's what we are. We're long-term investors. Let's take a look into our portfolio now. Our portfolio did quite well this week in a shortened week. There was only 4 days this week, as Monday was Labor Day in the US and the New York Stock Exchange was closed. Our portfolio gained 4.07% this week, which I'm very happy with, considering where things are at and at this moment, and so very happy with that this week. We did deposit funds into our eToro account on Wednesday the 7th. They equaled just shy of 2% of our overall portfolio, and we invested them on Friday. The majority we invested into SPHD, and the remainder, a small portion, we invested into VOO, which is VOO. VOO is Vanguard's ETF that tracks the S&P 500. That's where we invest our kids' college fund. The remainder went into SPHD. This is 50 companies out of the S&P 500 that have the best dividends, but also the lowest volatility. So they're the two factors that are considered in this ETF. And we invested in it because September, beginning of October, is known as a volatile time, and it performs quite well during volatile times, and it pays a decent dividend as well. As we near the end of October and near the midterm elections, we may actually look at moving this position that we've purchased in SPHD into something like VUG, which tracks about 260 growth companies, an ETF by Vanguard. We received dividends this week as well from SDIV. That's SDIV. SDIV is part of our income producing category within our portfolio. It pays a monthly dividend to us, along with some of our other ETFs and investments in our income producing category. However, this month is the last month of Q3, and so when we come to the end of a quarter, we also receive dividends from other investments that pay a quarterly dividend, and so this month we're expecting to be a higher dividend month than usual. Our biggest month of the year is usually January, because January is when some of the investments that we have that pay annual dividends pay their dividends out, and so January is kind of a big time for dividends for us. But it's nice to receive monthly dividends and get paid those every single month, and then they just go into our available balance, and we can invest them how we like. Let's take a look now into next week, and let's see what's happening there as far as what's going on in the market. And the biggest thing that's happening next week is the CPI number, the release of, essentially this is known as the inflation number, is what a lot of people call it. CPI is the Consumer Price Index, and we know now for over 80 days that gas in the US, this is petrol in the US, has dropped for over 80 days and is coming down. And so this is a big, because energy weights quite highly in CPI, this is a big number, and that's coming down. And many expect the CPI number to continue to come down as we get into next week. So that's the big thing that's happening next week. We're not making any new deposits or investments into our account. We're going to keep things fairly stable as we go through next week. But thanks for joining me here today and for being part of this episode. If you do have a question, again, send me a message on Instagram at NateGration, or connect with me on eToro. The link is in the description below. Or you can connect with me on my website. That's ngration.com. That's ngration.com. You'll find articles and more podcast episodes on there. I hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you in the next episode.